Today was an interesting day in class as I asked my students, what is historical scholarship? What does it look like? What does it consist of? I did share with them that I was doing this assignment and that I had to go on some databases and take a look at some research. The two databases being the Oxford database and the other one being Project Muse. I did tell them that I had to pull sources from there to use for the assignment, and I ended up choosing 3. Now, these are intended to build on my dissertation, so I did choose them primarily because of that, but also because I found the subject matter interesting. So I wanted to take a look at how the Mexican Revolution was being written now and how scholars were taking a look at this event. For my first source, I ended up going with Redeeming La Raza, Transborder Modernity, Race, Respectability, and Rights by Gabriela Gonzalez. This book was published in July of 2018. More specifically, I wanted to take a look at Chapter 3, which focused on the life of Leonor Vargas de Magon. I found this interesting because she goes into Magon's life and her contribution to the Mexican Revolution. She was an activist, a transborder activist, as she was a citizen of 2 worlds, essentially. Now, much of Magon's life and contribution to the Mexican Revolution didn't come into light until later on in her life, after her death with the burglarization of her abandoned home here in Laredo. Now, pieces of her memoir were published in the Laredo Morning Times in the 1960s. Now, Magon wrote 2 versions of her memoir, one in Spanish titled La Rebelión, which was aimed at a Mexican post-revolutionary audience. The second version of her book was written in English and aimed for a United States audience. It's believed that the memoir was written when she was in her late teens or early 20s. Interestingly enough was the cover differences between the English and the Spanish version. The Spanish version, which I have here, has a picture of women who were also known as fronteras, along with males in a railroad cart. Now, women did follow men along during the revolution, and they did have duties that contributed. A lot of them would also contribute in the fighting, but for the majority of the time, they did fall into gender roles and were responsible for cooking and cleaning and bandaging their husbands. Now, women did play a vital role in the revolution and its success, but were marginalized afterwards. Mary Kay Vaughan's article titled Women School Teachers in the Mexican Revolution touches a bit more on women marginalization and school teachers during the revolution. She states that only 25% of women over the age of 12 were literate in 1910. Her research mainly focuses on these teachers, 3 teachers to be specific, during 1920. Now, the last source I ended up pulling from Project Muse was titled Mexican Immigration to the United States, 1897 to 1931, which was published in 2019. Here, Lawrence Correzo looks at the labor force and labor movement in post-revolutionary Mexico. Now, the Mexican Revolution drove countless immigrants out of Mexico and into the United States. Now, this is mainly because their ancestral homeland had been destroyed or they were escaping political persecution. Now, this was a huge issue, especially after President Diaz was overthrown, as the rivaling political factions were fighting with one another for power. They drove several citizens out of Mexico looking for work, as inflation and anarchy and personal safety made living in Mexico questionable. The United States was experiencing a capitalistic and industrial boom. Now, there was a huge demand for low-paying, unskilled work, mainly in the agricultural field, but also in the railroad construction. Now, many of the Mexicans coming out of Mexico were familiar with agricultural work as they were coming from the hacienda system. It's interesting how the Mexican Revolution will be written now that it's been 100 years since its end. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you enjoy this content, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thank you all so much. This was an assignment for Liberty University. I'll see you all next time.